Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a slightly later than billed edition of Scotland at 7 with me, Gordon Ross. Joining me on the programme this evening is our regular contributor, Sam Paton. Hi, Sam. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Gordon. How are you?
I'm glad to hear it, Sam. I'm going to get on with the programme straight away since we're running a little bit later than planned. And we'll start with the coronavirus. As of 2 o'clock today, a total of 1,497,657 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and the UK government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Now, of these, 1.3 million, I'll read that again, 1,333,895 were confirmed negative, 163,762 were positive. There are 1,429 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. There were 0 new reported deaths of people who have tested positive today. As you'll know, this is an underestimate of the number of cases. Not everyone with the virus will display symptoms. Not all those with symptoms will be tested. Of the people who have tested positive, 1,959 were in hospital last night, 146 of whom were in intensive care. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus COVID-19 infection now stands at 5,305. This number only includes those who have died in hospital having received a positive test for the virus. The latest UK daily figures published today show that 89,860 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 599 since yesterday. This number refers to deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. Now, as usual, if you would like to join in the conversation here tonight, you can do so on Twitter by following us at BroadcastScot and using the hashtag Scotland7. And now tonight's main stories. £23 million compensation is being made available for fishing firms. Fishing lorries from Scotland and Devon descended on Westminster today to stage a protest against the Brexit red tape, which they say is either delaying or ruining exports of their fresh shellfish to the EU. Trucks with slogans including Brexit carnage and incompetent government destroying shellfish industry parked just metres from Downing Street, but they stopped short of carrying out their threat last week to dump fresh fish close to number 10. Boris Johnson has angered many business owners by describing the Brexit chaos as teething problems. He announced a £23 million fund had been created to compensate businesses that, through no fault of their own, have experienced bureaucratic delays in getting their goods to the other side of the channel. Responding to the Prime Minister's comments, the SNP's Shadow DEFRA spokesman, Deirdre Brock MP, said, "This is a compensation minnow when an industry needed a whale. The Tory government could find untold wealth in the line of pockets to line the pockets of their pals in dodgy COVID deals, but they seem to be struggling to find anything substantive to offer struggling fishing communities. Over £1 million a day in lost sales, a huge task to get back the customers that they've lost, and the whole supply chain will need to be rebooted. But this is all the Tories can offer, and there's still no prospect of sorting out the export paperwork system, which failed on day one and continues to fail now. It's thanks to this Tory government's incompetence that our vital fishing industry needs saving. So the message to the Prime Minister is clear. Bring forward meaningful support to save these jobs, businesses and communities, and then look to secure a grace period and get our fishing and seafood industries better access to the European markets they need and get rid of the mountain of red tape. The Tories have broken their Brexit promises and betrayed Scotland's fishing communities, forcing a vital sector to pay a heavy price." Now, Sam, you'll probably have seen the pictures today yourself on TV of the lorries trundling up and down in front of Parliament. What do you make of their claim that they're experiencing severe difficulties as a result of COVID?
I was I seen it, and I seen that there had a protest, and I thought, right, what's going on here? So I'm going to have a wee nosy, as a lot of people were doing. And basically, the issue is that because of the paperwork and the red tape and all the customs and the certificates that they need to now have in place to ship over to Europe, It is adding on time. Now, a lot of these ones are shipping live seafood or live shellfish,
Yeah.
and this is to do with the freshness and blah 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 blah. And what's happening now is because of all the extra paperwork that they've got to go through. The shellfish are now loaded onto the lorries for an extra 30 plus hours on top of what they used to be. So that's huge. That is a huge time difference. And, and if you're looking for fresh shellfish just caught from the sea, you're wanting it to be delivered to the restaurants as quickly as possible and markets as quickly as possible, not days later, because that's when you start getting problems with the quality of the product. And also as well, it brings down the kind of the assurances that Scotland provides a good quality product. So it affects all that as well. So, and what's happening is they've got to load the vans a day earlier than what they would needed to. Get all the paperwork done. And then they need to wait on an import pack coming from France. And then that's got to be filled out, and that's got to have a customs certificate, a hatch certificate, and a veterinary certificate as well, before they're even allowed to go onto the ship. And then they can't, if they don't have that before they get the ferry leaves or the ship leaves, they cannot get on that ship. So there needs to be something in place before. They need to change how the process is working.
Yeah, Sam, one lorry driver who was interviewed today stated that for 10 customers who he would normally deliver to in Europe for shellfish, he had 400 pages of forms to fill out. And he estimated that the delays and the extra paperwork cost him about £3,500 per delivery to Europe. And he said it just can't run a business like that. What do you think, Sam? Do you think that was an exaggeration, or do you think that that's really a reflection of the truth?
At the end of the day, nobody can run a business like that. There's got to be streamlined. I had seen the same interview, Gordon, and it's not for me to say that it was a slight exaggeration or he's telling the truth, because at the end of the day, I'm not involved in that business. That is his business and that's his experience that he's speaking about. And nobody can run a business like that. It's undoable. It's unattainable. It's unattainable. It's just, you just can't do that. Nobody can run a business. At the end of the day, it needs to be streamlined, especially when it comes to all businesses, but it needs to be streamlined and make it easier. But then again, when you've got a UK government who were overseeing the Brexit plans and deal, and half of them hadn't even read the paperwork properly themselves because they were too busy dealing with nativity plays and whatever else, who they seemed to be more important than people's livelihoods. At the end of the day, they're not interested in how it affects these businesses. And it's a shame for the businesses that did vote for Brexit because they believed that this was the best option for them, in terms of running their business. And it turns out they have been.
I was just going to say, Sam, 23 million seems like a sticking plaster amount of money.
It's a short-term solution, isn't it, Gordon? Really, it's a short-term solution because you're right, it's a sticking plaster. It's not going to solve the issue and the problem, which is
time, isn't it?
Time. It's a time issue, and it's a red tape issue. It's not, if these people had this was streamlined to a better system, and then I'm sure these businesses would be a lot happier, but it's not. It's what you meant to do. How many hoops are you meant to jump over to run a business?
Okay, well, listen, Sam, we'll need to move on to our next story now, which is a call for a U-turn on the Tory universal credit cut. The SNP has said that the Tories must U-turn on cruel plans to cut universal credit for millions of families, as new research revealed that the cuts would drive up poverty as real incomes fall. The report from the Resolution Foundation this morning estimates that Tory plans to cut universal credit by £20 a week could see the incomes of low-income families fall by more than 4%. and drive up the relative poverty from 21% to 23% by 2024-25, while a further 820,000 children would fall into poverty. Ian Blackford MP said that the Tory government must make the £20 uplift permanent and extend it to legacy benefits as part of a wider package to boost incomes after decades of Tory austerity. And he challenged Douglas Ross to order the Scottish Tory MPs to vote for a permanent increase when the issue comes to the Commons today. The SNP Westminster leader said that the fact that Westminster is even considering cutting the incomes of 6 million people in an economic crisis demonstrates yet again that the only way to secure a strong, fair and equal recovery is for Scotland to become an independent country with full control over financial powers, welfare powers and employment law. The latest Office for National Statistics labour market survey published in December revealed redundancies hit a record high of 370,000, while the UK unemployment rate rose to over 4.9%, with over 819,000 fewer people in employment in November than in February. The Scottish Conservatives leader Douglas Ross has confirmed that all 6 Scottish Tory MPs will abstain on Boris Johnson's plans to cut universal credit for 6 million people when it comes to a vote in the Commons tonight. Now, Sam, this I know is something which exercises all of us, and rightly so, because many people are struggling to put food on the table and having to decide whether they put the heating on or not. And this surely is just another blow to the poor people of the UK.
It's just, it's beggars belief to even think that they're even contemplating this to start with. At the end of the day, the fact that it's even gone to a debate and is just diabolical. You know, a wee bit of humility here. And the thing is they're quick enough to award themselves a pay rise and so forth. £20 is not a lot of money. It is really not a lot of money. But to some people, that's £20 is putting extra electricity into their meter or extra gas into their meter. Yeah. Especially at the moment because people are all stuck at home. The fuel bills are going up because everybody's stuck at home and we're in the middle of winter. I mean, £20, I mean, when you think it in the grand scheme of things, what is £20 really? And to take that off of people at this moment in time, at the end of the day, they shouldn't be considering taking off of people full stop. And the fact that the legacy benefits, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Gordon, but the legacy benefits don't get this £20. Do they not?
Well, that's the problem. I think the SNP was calling for it to be extended.
Yeah, they need to get it because there's so many people on legacy benefits. But then again, what they're trying to do is get people off these legacy benefits to go on to universal credit and get them into that trap of universal credit. Yeah. And we all know the problems of universal credit. But it is disgusting. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. And I'm going to go back to the same old rhetoric that is the universal basic income. You know, there's an answer out of it. Independence for Scotland, there's another answer out of it. But the Tory government's not going to do that, are they?
Fair enough, Sam. Okay, well, let's move on now to another part of the economy affected by Brexit. And support is being offered for taxi and private hire drivers. A new fund to support taxi and private hire drivers affected by the pandemic will launch this week. Local authorities will directly approach an estimated 38,000 private hire and taxi drivers, inviting them to claim a £1,500 grant to assist with fixed costs, boosting the support from other funding for loss of income available through the Scottish and UK governments. A total of £57 million has been allocated by the Scottish Government, 3 times more than the allocation announced in December. Councils will start contacting eligible drivers this week to brief them on their potential entitlement and to ask them to provide supporting information and bank account details. They do not need to apply or contact the local authority. Now, this, Sam, sounds like a very welcome lifeline for taxi drivers who have, let's face it, been very badly hit by the pandemic and the sudden loss of business.
Yeah, I know down in my area, the taxi drivers have really suffered and have been calling for extra support and help from the government. So this will be welcomed. It's not a lot of money. It's a sticking plaster. It's another sticking plaster, but it's support and it's something to help them. Because the thing is, what people don't realise is they've got to purchase their badge every year, and there is costs with taxing. So yeah, it's one of the industries that have been kind of forgotten in this pandemic, unfortunately.
Okay, well, at least the taxi drivers are going to get something, Sam. Eh? Okay,
Yeah,
now
they're going to get something.
yeah, moving on now to the COP26 conference coming up in Glasgow this year. And the SNP is to appoint new COP26 roles in Westminster. The SNP has appointed a shadow spokesperson for COP26, the global climate change conference taking place in Glasgow in November. Deirdre Brock MP will take on a new role with Brendan O'Hare MP as her deputy, in addition to her current brief as the SNP spokesperson for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. COP26 will be the largest summit ever hosted in Scotland and in the UK. It will bring together representatives from nearly 200 countries, including world leaders, experts and campaigners. The new US administration has already signalled the importance of the summit, with President-elect Joe Biden appointing John Kerry to cover the new administration's environment brief. The long-standing Democrat has already announced his intention to make the Glasgow event a turning point in the global response to the climate crisis. Sam, again, this is an interesting development. The SNP is appointing a shadow minister for COP26. Now, it's interesting, I think, because the role of the Scottish Government in COP26 is rather nebulous at the moment, although the event is being held in Glasgow. And it's right in the patch of the First Minister virtually. And we're not hearing very much about the involvement of the Scottish Government in the organisation of this event, are we?
No, the UK government is doing everything they can to keep the Scottish government out of this, aren't they? And the thing is, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great time for Scotland to stand up and be counted and to be seen on the world stage. But obviously, the UK government's trying to stop that, and they're trying to very much make it, it is their, conference. Yeah. It's their platform, but it's not. It's really the Scottish Government. We all know that. But however, it'll be good to see Scotland on the world stage, because no matter what, it's been held in Glasgow, it's been held in Scotland. We're still going to be in the world stage. We're still going to be there, and we're still going to be able to shout and dance and sing about all the wonderful things that we're doing in Scotland regarding climate change. And if there's a referendum in September, then, that's even better,
Sam, I'm sort of reminded in this particular instance of the Commonwealth Games, which of course happened in the same year as a referendum as well. And I remember the complaints that the British Broadcasting Corporation had largely taken over Glasgow for large amounts of time and didn't really give Scotland a look in. It was largely a sort of obliterated by a whole bunch of people parachuted in. Do you think this is going to be a similar kind of almost invasion of the British media?
Of course it will be, Gordon. We'd be silly to think otherwise. Of course it will be. This is what they'll be doing. They will be parachuted in, as you put it, and they will take over. However, hopefully by that point, our vaccination programme will be well underway, and the majority will be vaccinated against COVID-19, and we will be able to stand there, take to the streets and wave our flags proudly and be able to get our voice heard. And the thing is about the difference between now and when it was the Commonwealth Games, there is a lot more online broadcasting
Here we are doing it
sites
right
like
now, Sam.
Broadcasting Scotland and things. Yes, we're doing it right now. So, and we do have an audience, and we have an audience abroad. So, it doesn't matter if they try to. If they try to turn around and block our, they're not going to be able to do it. They might be able to do it in mainstream media, but they're not going to be able to do it by the internet and various other
Okay.
channels. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
Sam,
So,
certainly Broadcasting Scotland will be there covering the event ourselves, so hopefully we will get the message out. Anyway, we need to move on to our next item now, and a new chair has been appointed for the Scottish Police Authority. Martin Evans has been appointed as the chair of the Scottish Police Authority, the SPA board. He'll begin the role on February the 1st, replacing David Crichton, who has been serving as interim chair since December 2019. The Justice Secretary, Humza Yousaf, said, "I'm delighted to appoint Martin Evans to the chair of the SPA. This is one of the most important roles in Scottish public life, supporting and scrutinising Police Scotland. And Martin will bring his considerable expertise to ensure that the SPA continues to undertake this important function. Having served as a board member for the last 2 years, he has a very good in-depth understanding of policing in Scotland, and I'm confident that he will bring dynamic leadership to as the chairman, maintaining good working relations with a wide range of organisations with an interest in policing. This is a time of unprecedented change. COVID-19, the single greatest public health crisis of our lifetimes, has had a profound effect on our whole way of life. In this space, the role of policing has never been more important as a key frontline service in the drive to keep people in Scotland safe. I'm also hugely grateful to David Crichton, the outgoing interim chair, for his continued dedication and progress in delivering positive changes over this past year, leading the SPA in the face of unprecedented challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic." Sam, the appointment of a new chief of police, in effect, how important is this? I mean, the police obviously in Scotland are answerable to Holyrood, as far as I remember. But the chief of police in Scotland obviously is not just in charge of one division of the police. It's across islands, across the Highlands. It's a very big geographic area for the person to manage. How big a task do you think this is for the new chairman to undertake?
I would imagine it's going to be quite a huge task, and obviously he will have people there to support him in the new role. The thing is, to normal everyday people and things, it doesn't really kind of affect them directly. It has an indirect effect because obviously he's there to advise the Parliament and so forth on policies and things like that and policing, and then he is there to litigate that to the police force and make sure the training and everything's all in place. So, it kind of it affects us indirectly rather than directly, and how the police perform. So it'll be interesting to see, what changes are going to kind of come into place in policing in Scotland, and what's going to be implemented and what's not. Then, at the moment, it's when these people are appointed, it takes a wee while for us to see any kind of progress or any
to
changes
settle in and make their mark, I
to
suppose.
settle into the job. So it'll be a wee while down the line before we can see whether it's a good appointment or it's not. We'll just need to wait and see.
Okay, Sam, thank you very much for that. Now, moving to Russia now, and Alexei Navalny has been given a 30-day detention order until a parole review. A judge in Moscow has ordered that Alexei Navalny be held in custody for 30 days until a parole review that could imprison him for years, as Russia defied international pressure to release the Kremlin critic. Despite international outcry led by the United States and the European leaders, and joined by activists including Edward Snowden, a Russian dissident, the Kremlin has moved forward with the legal framework it would need to send one of Vladimir Putin's most tenacious opponents to a penal colony by the end of the month. In response, Navalny has called for mass protests this Saturday. There is nothing these thieves in their bunkers fear more than people on the streets, he said from a Moscow courtroom. The size of those protests could determine whether or not the Putin critic is freed or given a long prison sentence. Now, Sam, Mr. Navalny, as we all know, was recently his life was nearly taken in a poisoning attempt. And he was hospitalised in Berlin for several months. And as far as I can understand it, Sam, the reason that he's being imprisoned is because he missed signing in for, I suppose, what we would call a kind of parole officer visit to maintain his freedom, which he'd been granted, I think, a suspended sentence. Now they're saying that he hadn't turned up for his parole meeting, if you want to call it that, and therefore he has to go back to jail. Surely this is very unfair.
Unfair, definitely. Political, definitely. The thing is, the problem is, he is an outspoken opposition leader of Putin, and we can't have that now. That just can't happen. And it's just diabolical. You knew fine well as soon as he returned to Russia that something was going. He was just going to go straight back into prison, and that's what's happened. And the thing is, this is a political decision. I mean, to turn around, it's ludicrous to say, oh, he didn't appear and he missed a date. At the end of the day, the man was in hospital. Everybody knew about it. And I'm sure the authorities knew that he was in hospital, and they had been given official notice that he was in hospital. So this is a political decision in trying to keep someone down and keep someone quiet, really. I don't see what else it is. It serves no purpose. It serves no. It's not to the public interest. I would say to.
Well, certainly, Mr. Navalny, as far as I recall, Vladimir Putin refuses even to use his name in public. At one point, referring to Mr. Navalny, I think, as the Berlin patient. He obviously, even his name is something which the Kremlin seems to fear being spoken aloud. So they must be worried about him, because obviously Navalny himself said that he had to return to Russia because he couldn't lead an opposition to Putin from outside of Russia. Do you think this man is brave or foolish, Sam?
Probably a bit of both. I think in order to be that brave, you also need to be a bit foolish. But yeah, at the end of the day, that just goes to show you how much they fear him if they refuse to say his name or have his name mentioned. As I say, an old thing kind of popped into my head there. Someone's name is power, and if you say their name, you give them power. So at the end of the day, they're obviously fearing this man. So there's a reason why they fear him. So, and that's why they're doing this. It's to bring him down and to try to keep him down and keep him from having a voice. And good on him. As I say, he's a very brave man, but very foolish at the same time, because he is putting his life in danger, which. In that sense, I feel sorry for his family, because they're having to live with this and see this and experience this, which is absolutely heartbreaking. And that's the foolish part of it. But in another sense, good on him, and he is very brave.
Okay, well, thank you, Sam. Moving on now to America, and the FBI say that a woman may have tried to sell Pelosi a computer device to the Russians. US law enforcement is investigating whether a woman took a laptop computer or a hard drive from the US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's office during the January the 6th siege of the Capitol and tried to sell the device to Russian intelligence, according to a court filing. An FBI agent disclosed the detail in an affidavit released last night that outlined a criminal case against Riley June Williams, a Pennsylvania woman accused of unlawfully breaching the Capitol building and directing people to Pelosi's office. The theft of electronic devices from congressional offices has been a persistent worry following the siege by supporters of US President Donald Trump. Acting US Attorney Michael Sherwin said that the attack that some thefts might have been potentially jeopardized what he described as national security equities. According to the affidavit filed with the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, the FBI received a tip from someone who stated they were a former romantic partner of Williams. The tipster said Williams intended to sell the computer device to a friend in Russia, who then planned to sell the device to the SVR, Russia's foreign intelligence service, the affidavit stated. According to the FBI, it appears Williams had fled an address near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which she shared with her mother, deactivated her phone number and took down social media accounts. 2 days after the Capitol siege, Hamill said that the laptop used for presentations was stolen from a conference room in Pelosi's office. It was unclear whether that device was one Williams was accused of taking. Now, Sam, this is a remarkable story that somehow during the siege and subsequent invasion of the Capitol building, a woman got into Nancy Pelosi's office and stole a computer and is trying to sell it to the Russians. It's absolutely unbelievable. I thought the story of the Capitol siege couldn't get any more bizarre, but then it suddenly does.
It does, doesn't it? You just think, how did she think that she was going to get away with that? You know, did she think nobody was going to notice? It's just, as you say, it's completely bizarre. You know, obviously somebody was going to notice, and you know, it's just crazy. I don't know about you, Gordon, but have you watched any of the videos that have been on social media, especially from the New Yorker, regarding the siege? And when you watch them and you see the people storming the building, they looked actually quite organised, whereas originally last week I got the impression it was a last minute thing, it was not organised, and you know, it was one of those kind of spur of the moment things. But when you're watching the videos, they are actually quite organised. They are actually looking for certain things. When they were going through paperwork, they're looking for certain things, and they're looking for certain.
There were some pictures, Sam, of people going through papers in the Senate, inside the House of Representatives. They're looking through people's desks and rifling through papers. Yeah. They were obviously looking for something incriminating, weren't they? Yeah,
they were, and they were taking photographs and things. Now, and that's quite concerning, because what we originally thought of something being quite spontaneous wasn't spontaneous in any shape or form. And what are they looking for? What was the purpose? And a lot of them, you see them taking photographs on their mobile phones. Now, what's happened with that information? Because to a certain degree, some of that will be classified, or there'll be some sort of protection, security issues and things like that on that. So, the FBI have got their job cut out for them at the moment, trying to get round all these people and grab all that information back. And no doubt already some of that information will be falling into various hands, and will be certain parts of the internet already.
It makes you wonder, Sam, whether the authorities in the United States will pursue the people who stole this information in the same way that they have done, for example, with Julian Assange.
Yeah, well, I would hope they do. Because at the end of the day, they can't turn round and criticise Assange and do what they're doing there, and then let these people get away with what they've done. Because at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, what they've done is a lot worse. I mean, look, what they've done, they are straight in to the Senate, and they are deliberately, it's to cause malice. It's not even freedom of information. It's not even
they're stealing confidential documents.
It's malice. It is actually malice, and it's to cause malice. What Assange done was whistleblowing and freedom of information. What they're doing is malice and an attempt to harm, which is completely different.
Okay. Listen, thank you very much, Sam. Moving back to the UK now, and a new lung cancer medicine. Responding to an approval of entrectinib, which is apparently some kind of drug, by the Scottish Medicines Consortium. The Health Secretary, Gian Freeman, said, "We welcome the decision by the independent Scottish Medicines Consortium to approve entrectinib," what a strange word, "for the treatment of patients with a rare form of advanced non-small cell lung cancer. Being diagnosed with cancer is devastating for all those affected, and we're committed to supporting and continually improving patient care. Cancer services remain a priority across NHS Scotland, and the majority of treatments have continued throughout the pandemic. Sam, so a little bit of good news in the middle of COVID, that a new treatment for a form of lung cancer has emerged in the midst of all of this chaos. Surely another little triumph for the Scottish NHS.
Yes, it certainly is, and it just goes to show you that even amongst the pandemic, and everybody believes that everything's been focused on COVID at the moment, that they are still out there researching and finding treatments for other diseases and other conditions. So yeah, but I'm glad you had the opportunity to say that wonderful
tricked to know.
name
I can say it now.
Yes, rather than me.
Honestly, who makes these names up, Sam?
Honestly, the name of some of the drugs and things like that is just like, what? Really?
Yes.
Were they drunk when they came up with their names? So because they're very much tongue twisters, and trying to get the brain wrapped around them is
I suppose it
quite interesting.
doesn't matter as long as the treatment works, Sam. Eh?
Exactly, that's the main thing. As long as the treatment works, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter what it's called.
Well, certainly lung cancer is or was traditionally one of the big three, wasn't it, Sam? There was cancer. Heart attacks and strokes were the main causes of death in Scotland prior to COVID, obviously. But people have been asking this question, what has been happening to cancer treatment during the COVID pandemic? And I think now the Health Secretary can rightly point to something and say, look, we are developing a new treatment for cancer right here and right now. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the treatments for cancer and detection for cancer hasn't stopped. It's just changed how they do it, but it's not stopped. I mean, I know of a lady who found a lump, and she was right away referred to the breast cancer clinic, and it was within a week or two, and a month on, she knows that she is fine. It wasn't anything sinister. So there is people out there, and these, and this is the thing, and this is where false information can be quite dangerous, where people are believing these things are not happening just because it's changed how they are.
Well, they're not seeing it.
The procedures. Yes, just because you're not going to the clinics the way you would go to the clinics and before COVID, but it is still there. If MD who has any symptoms of cancer or any other condition, you contact your GP and or NHS 24, and you are still treated. You are still go through the process. It's just slightly different. It's still happening, and this false information that cancer diagnosis and everything's all been scaled back. It's all a load of rubbish. It is really a load of rubbish right now.
Okay, well listen, Sam, we're going to move on now to what I think is another good news story. And extra funding has been made available to support unpaid carers. An investment of £750,000 in local carer centres will increase support for unpaid carers of all ages, helping them to take a break from caring and access other much needed help. This recognises some of the challenges faced by unpaid carers, with many regular sources of support having stopped or moved online due to the pandemic. It also comes in response to concerns about increasing pressure on carers, particularly while many traditional respite breaks are restricted or unavailable. The funding will allow local carer centres to react flexibly to the needs of carers in their areas. Feedback from national and local carer representatives suggests that there is a demand for extending existing services such as befriending, counselling or online support groups, as well as offering additional grants for carers which can be used for expenditure such as leisure equipment, hobbies or entertainment subscriptions. Now Sam, this is a subject where we're looking at a group of people who are often invisible in society and completely overlooked normally by government. Getting a bit of help for a change.
Yeah, and it'll be very welcomed, and I'm sure our Chris would have been better placed to answer this one, so I will try my best here. Um, Basically, yeah, unpaid carers are overlooked and sometimes forgotten about by society, and they play a vital role in our society, and I cannot stress that enough. A lot of these people right now are under so much stress because where they would normally get a bit of respite, support, and things, a lot of them are not getting that. They are really not getting that. And sometimes it's just respite for an hour, even just to get a break for 1 hour, just to clear the head to go out for a walk or something. Because some of these people are, living with the people they care for, and it's a 24-hour job, 7 day a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of one couple who the lady is elderly and she cares for her husband who's got dementia, and at this moment in time the support they get is very limited due to COVID. And I was talking to her last week and she was saying, see if she could just get somebody just for 1 hour just to sit with her husband so she could go for a walk and clear her head once a week, that would make a huge difference to her life. And so, yeah, this is going to be very, very welcomed. And I think we need to be doing more to be helping these carers. They're unsung heroes at this moment in time. They really are. And, and they are, some of them are really struggling. And I'm not saying struggling as in terms of finances and things, I'm saying they're struggling mentally with their own mental health. And what's going to happen is if we don't step in, which looks as if we are now stepping in, we're going to have like a problem at the back of this, because we're going to have more people suffering from mental health problems because they're not getting the support that they should be getting.
They need respite, as you say, Sam. They need a break.
They need respite. They need a break. As much as it's their loved ones, they still need a bit of respite. So whether it's a lot of the times, support that they need is just sometimes just an hour. So basic. Just an hour just to go for a walk. And obviously there's some families and carers that need a wee bit more than that. They need a bit of financial help. Or it could be access to services, educational, hobby materials, things like that. But a lot of the time, from anybody that I speak to when I'm out and about, when I am allowed out and about, they say it's just, just to get an hour, a break for 1 hour.
Time to yourself.
Would just make the difference. Yeah, that's the biggest one.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you very much, Sam. Now, moving on to yet another poll result, and a 19th poll in a row shows that a majority would vote for independence. A new poll has found that a majority of people would vote for Scotland to become an independent country, the 19th consecutive poll to put support for independence above 50%. The Survation poll, conducted on behalf of Scott Goes Pop, shows huge support for independence amongst those aged 25 to 34, with 78%. And it reveals that 55% of women would vote yes in a referendum. The SNP Deputy Leader, Keith Brown, said that recent polling shows that people in Scotland believe they have the right to decide their own future, rather than being subjected to Westminster governments that they don't vote for. Commenting, Keith Brown, MSP, said, with 19 consecutive polls putting support for independence above 50%, it's clear that the people of Scotland believe they have the right to decide their own future, rather than being subjected to Westminster governments they didn't vote for, led by the likes of Boris Johnson. By imposing a devastating hard Brexit in the middle of a global pandemic, launching a power grab on Scottish Parliament and denying democracy to an increasingly Trump-like fashion, the Tories at Westminster have shown that they can't be trusted to act in Scotland's interests. Majority support for independence is now the established position of the people of Scotland, and no wonder, when only independence will enable the people of Scotland to build a fairer, greener, more prosperous country. Scotland has the right to escape the Brexit mess caused by the Tories and to choose a better future as an equal, independent nation in Europe. So I'm not really surprised by this, Sam. Were you surprised to see another poll so hot on the heels of the last one?
No, I'm not, Gordon, and I think we're going to get many more, and I think it's going to keep on being the same trend. And when that, as that keeps happening, then obviously the Westminster government are going to get more and more annoyed, and
Yeah.
and yeah, they're going to get nastier in how they deal with their MPs down there. But no, I'm not surprised because at the end of the day, as I always say, sometimes you need to, in order to change people's minds or to let them see what's happening, they've got to experience it. And, actions are
Felt.
more
Yeah.
felt rather than words. It's definitely, we can sit here all day and preach to the masses about the wonders of independence, the benefits, everything about it. But until people actually see actions and actually experience it, the the words mean nothing.
Yeah.
And part of the kind of the lighter side or the more positive side of COVID has shown how our Scottish government has dealt with COVID. They have dealt with COVID more efficiently and more effectively. They have made mistakes. We all know that. We are aware of the mistakes that they've been making. But as a whole, they have been more efficient, more effective, and they are doing their damnedest to try and protect everybody in society. Yes, there's people still slipping through, but they're doing their
Yeah.
best. And then you look at the UK government, the Westminster government, and you see how they are reacting to COVID and how they're dealing with it. It is total two different comparisons. You couldn't even say it's two sides of the one coin. There is such a big imbalance there. So people who were not sure about independence before are actually seeing the actions and experiencing
Yeah.
the difference between the daily briefings, the questions that Nicola Sturgeon puts up way daily from the journalists, the criticism, and and that's what's causing these polls to be more and more positive
One
towards
other thing,
independence.
Sam, that jumped out at me from this was the detail in the data that were presented in this report. Shows that 78% of the younger generation, from 24 to 35, now support independence. That's an enormous figure, 78% of young people. Did that surprise you?
It's huge. It's huge. Well, yes and no, because the thing is, what you're noticing now is our younger generation is more aware of their culture, which has been lost, whereas we're kind of late to the party in terms of our culture and things
Yeah.
because we in schools and things we weren't encouraged to for our history and things like that, whereas the younger generations are getting taught their the Scottish history and things like that in school, and it's all more encouraged. And then also as well with the Scots language and things like that. So there's all these things, which is kind of being relit again. It's reignited again in the younger generations, which is absolutely amazing to see, and it's lovely. And there's something kind of quite heartfelt about that. Seeing the younger ones, and the younger ones now are living in a world wide community where they are seeing small countries similar to Scotland who are independent and are surviving and are thriving.
Yeah.
They don't buy into this imperialism
Well,
the way the older generations did.
let's hope you're right, Sam. It certainly sounds like it from the result of today's polls. Okay, and now to our next story. And Scotland has lost one of its great entertainers with the death of Andy Gray. The 61-year-old star of City Lights, Naked Video and River City started his acting career at Perth Theatre in the late 70s, shot to fame in the 1980s with the BBC Scotland sitcom City Lights, playing Chancer, the sidekick of Willie Melvin, who was played by Gerard Kelly. Tributes have been paid by fans and actors and colleagues from across the Scottish entertainment industries. Sam, a sad day. Andy Gray, I certainly remember him well as being a big sort of Glasgow guy, and he always came across as larger than life. I don't know about you, I was very shocked to hear that he had died so relatively young, just 61.
Yeah, what's it? It's a shit. It's vacant. It's when such a young age, and it's feel sorry. Condolences to his family and friends. Yeah, it's sad to lose people too early and too soon.
Of course, he follows Gerard Kelly as well, who died some years ago. But Andy Gray, I certainly remember him because he appeared in so many programmes over the years, and mostly comedies. He seemed to have a real talent for that. And
Yeah,
you know, so he's leaving a big hole in the sort of comedic universe in Scotland at the moment.
yeah, and the panto industry as well,
Yes.
because he done that every year, and it's hard. It's a shame. It is a shame, and you kind of why do we lose these wonderful, talented people? So young. We always, we do. We seem to lose all the kind of so young, talented people so young, and it's a shame. He brought so much pleasure to the young ones, especially the panto season and things like
Yeah.
that. And the young ones are going to miss out on that now. They're going to. It's a shame. It's
Okay.
quite sad.
Well, it's also a shame, Sam, that we're coming to the end of the programme, also ending it on a slightly sad note this evening. But of course, we are running out of time, and at this time in the programme, I need to tell you that we're having a massive crowdfunder at the moment. It's going to be a vital year in Scotland's history, and Broadcasting Scotland wants to be there for all of the big events this year, but we can't do it without your help. So if you can, please go online and become a supporter of Broadcasting Scotland, or if you don't want to do that, can't afford that, you can make an individual donation, and also we will always be looking for volunteers. So that's it from me in the studio and from Sam Paton tonight. Thank you very much, Sam, and I'll see you all again on Scotland at 7. Good night for now.
The Catalans, the Basques, the Galicians in the Basque.
An independent future for Scotland.
How quickly do you think a referendum can be arranged?
Best practice demands that it should be 6 months.
Just looking at the overall share numbers for Scotland at the moment, the SNP 46.4%.